Hey there, Hill folk, and welcome back to another episode of Appalachian Intelligence. We're extremely thankful that you guys could join us again for another week, for another edition of AI. With you tonight, your hosts, as usual, Justin, Ryan, and Lance. Ryan, Lance. Actually, let's redo this. Ryan, how are you doing tonight, buddy?
Boo.
Well, I
Not
was
boo you,
doing.
Ron. Boo the fact
Oh,
that he stuck us in a box.
yeah.
No,
Well, I'm going to have to moderate these introductory how you doings because the last time it started like this whole big fight about how it makes you guys this awkward silence and so uncomfortable with trying not to step on each other and so
it's actually the opposite of what we said. We said we enjoyed the awkwardness.
Yeah.
well, that's true, that is true, but I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy you
Whatever you
guys
want, Justin.
enjoying
Whatever you
the
want. That's
awkwardness.
what we'll do.
And I
Well,
mean, if
You're steering this
we
rudderless ship.
say boo to you, sir. Boo to you, sir.
so, as you hill folk can see, these guys are they're feeling feisty tonight. That's how I'm going to describe it. Feisty, fat, and sassy. That's
Here. Yeah.
that's the aesthetic of the night. Fat and sassy. But no, we're extremely thankful that you guys could join us again. We're all three here with you for tonight, which is getting extremely rare these days. We've been crazy busy. I do want to apologize right off the bat for having to release a Patreon episode, this latest episode that we've dropped, or a couple weeks back, whenever this thing drops. I don't know. But we do apologize for that. There was a huge youth-centered, student-centered revival that broke out in the county that we live in. And as a leader of a teen ministry in a local church, I felt the need and the desire and the pull to be a part of that and to help with all the interactions and the happenings of this revival. And as I told these boys to put out there, I said, look, just tell the hill folk that I got my foot on Satan's throat right now and I'm steady pushing. But no, it was an awesome thing, man. You're in an area where there's a whole lot of darkness. So to be able to see something like that break out and to see approximately 100 people, surrender their life to Jesus Christ, that's a huge thing to be able to pray with them and to pray over them and love on them and congratulate them and kind of help them out with those resources and the next steps needed and, what they need to do and look for and all these different things. It was a really awesome time. It was where my heart was. But so that's where I was. We want to apologize to all the people out there that have been waiting on stickers for a while. I know we've owed some for a little while. We'll get those out to you. We've just been extremely busy again. We're finally starting to kind of get back into the groove of things and get a kind of a regular schedule going. But we're also extremely thankful and grateful for you guys out there because all of our community that has gave feedback on everything going on. It's been nothing but love and support and all that. So for that, we are extremely gracious and extremely thankful for all that. Anything else I'm missing? Anything else I need to apologize for, boys?
Your face.
Told you.
That was awesome.
Fat and sassy. Fat and sassy.
No, you're good. No. Proceed.
Okay. Anything else that we're falling short of out there that's on your guys' brains and it's not coming to me right now? Just know that we apologize.
These people, they're used to us falling short on stuff. Yeah. They know what they're getting into.
We're coming up short in every category. It doesn't matter. So we're going to get started like we always do. We're going to read a couple of 5-star reviews tonight because we're really far behind in reading those, which is a great problem to have. You guys keep doing it, and we love it. So we're going to read a couple tonight. The first one comes from, oh no, it's Mimi. It says a real gem, 5 stars. Found this podcast through the confessionals. I love the relaxed conversational format. Definitely a fun listen if you enjoy the paranormal genre. I'm so happy that I came across this podcast. So, oh no, it's Mimi. Thank you. We greatly appreciate that review.
Yes, we do.
The next one comes from River Bandit 1979. It says, best dadgum podcast ever. 5 stars. Hey, fellas, just want to say Appalachian Intelligence is one of the best podcasts that I've listened to. If you like cryptids, mountain lore, southern tales, etc., this is the show for you. Growing up my whole life in southern middle Tennessee, I'm familiar with some of their topics, and brother, let me tell you, they will have you fiending for more when they done. Awesome job, fellas. This old river rat says, listen to AI. They never let you down 100%. So, River Bandit, we appreciate that, brother. We love our really local, close to home hill folk reaching out. And like we've said on here before, if our real Central Appalachian hill folk are loving what we're doing, then we know we're doing something right. And we're doing it. We're giving credit where credit's due. So we really appreciate that all the way around, both of those reviews. Thank y'all. So, boys, this topic we're getting in tonight, how y'all feel about it?
I have no idea about any of it, but I'm just going to trust you guys know what you're talking about. Hey, before we get started though,
That's a problem.
we got a message from Jason Layfield on the Patreon talking about some mysteries, and one of the questions was, how do these people get their mobile homes in these places that they do in the mountains? And I just wanted to tell him it's robots, and that's not a joke. You can look on YouTube and find it.
I'll tell you how they do it. They do it with AI, Appalachian Intelligence. It's literally Appalachian robots that put this stuff in there.
We've never moved a double wide.
Not us, a different category. Ryan, how do you know I've never moved a double wide?
You physically picked up and moved a double wide.
Maybe I did.
And by robots, he means a couple of good old boys, 3 telephone poles and 2 come-alongs.
Yes.
There was a Roomba there, though, so technically there was a robot.
It was mowing the grass, but whatever.
Yeah. Also, something that I want to say before I forgot this one. I want to give a huge shout out for the folks, the couple over in Pikeville that had such nice words whenever I ran into them at the movie theater today when I went. It's really cool. This is one of the first times that I mean, boys, I guess we're just famous now. We're famous. I mean, we're getting recognized by strangers in public. Okay. No, but in all seriousness, I appreciate you guys coming up and speaking and talking about the show and saying such kind words and showing so much love for the show and for what we're doing. I really, really appreciate that. I'm sorry that I didn't get your names. That was a big drop in the ball on my end. Mainly because I was not prepared for that. It's the first time that's happened.
Absolutely not. Told keep by surprise, as it should have.
I can't believe his head fit through the bathroom door after that.
I actually had to zoom out the cameras to get his head in this picture.
I mean, it still blows my mind that people message and email, with such kind words and so much love all the time. And that's one thing. But when you see somebody in person that you don't even know, and as you're walking by, they're saying, hey, ain't you Justin from Appalachian Intelligence? Like, that's a whole different, like, whoa, yeah, I am. Now what? Now what I do?
It would have been hilarious if you'd been like, what?
Yeah, I have no idea who you're talking about. But no, for you
They
folks,
were government agents.
I was
Maybe.
also at the movie theaters and paid them $15 a piece to come talk to him like that.
I wish you would. I wish that was a true story. That would have been awesome. But no, for you folks, I greatly appreciate that encounter. It was really cool. It was nice to talk to you folks. And if you shoot us an email, tell us your name, we'll send you some stickers out. Maybe it may be 6 months. I'm giving the sticker job to Ryan because I can't ever get them out. So Ryan's going to be our sticker sender outer man.
Well,
all right. So let's dive on into this topic that we're looking at today. What we're going to be talking about today, it was sent to me by a listener a few weeks back now, probably close to a couple months back, maybe. But it was a news article written in the Dickinson Star, which is, our local newspaper here where I live still today. And this article brings up a lot of really interesting accounts and details that I think kind of fall into a bunch of other stuff and lead to other things. But what we're going to be looking at is the area of Lee County, Virginia, which is the far southwestern county in Virginia. The Cumberland Gap goes right through Lee County. And we'll get into a lot of more of that stuff. But we're going to be looking at some accounts, some stories of caves and caverns and creatures, a bunch of this different stuff going on there and in a real newspaper article. So I think Lance has got some stuff that he's going to deliver when we get done talking about all this that I'm really excited for, that he's been dropping hints and clues to for the last couple of weeks. And y'all got to realize too, yeah, we've been maybe not on this show, but on different shows. We've been so many places now. I can't remember what we say on our show, what we say on other people's shows. I don't even know. We're doing almost, we're making an appearance on somebody else's show like once a week or once every couple of weeks now at this point. Again, I told you we're famous,
which
bro.
is one of my favorite things.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah, it's a whole lot of fun.
Yeah.
So now, Ryan, that you know a little bit about what we're talking about, now what do you think about it?
It sounds awesome, man. I'm ready. I didn't space out at all while you were talking.
Yeah, I bet.
I'm joking.
Okay, so I gave a little preface there about what we're talking. There's a whole bunch of stuff that could tie in, that we could bring in to this episode. We've talked a little bit about it here and there on different shows. I think probably the best way to do this is just read the newspaper article, talk a little bit about the places that are mentioned in here, some different ideas about, what is said through the article, and then just kind of go from there with conversation and what we think. So, as I said, this article happens in Lee County, Virginia. Lee County is now it's famous and ranks near the top with a lot of these other far southwestern counties in Virginia as one of the poorest counties in Virginia. There's not a whole lot of industry going on in that area. But throughout history, Lee County has been extremely advantageous for a lot of different people. What was that?
I keep getting notifications. Sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine. I thought it was somebody. It sounded like a little girl talking or something. I was like, what the heck? Yes, our first DVP. But no, Lee County throughout history, in the Civil War, it was you. Well, I guess we should start earlier. Like I said, the Cumberland Gap is a gap it's a pass in the mountains the Cumberland Mountains that are literally the border of Virginia and Kentucky. So Daniel Boone, who is an extremely famous, well, he's a legendary, famous figure in all of America, but definitely Appalachian America, because he was a frontiersman that is said to have been the first to do a whole lot of different things. I don't necessarily believe that. And y'all know that at this point on this show that we believe Appalachian and American history go back way further than 1775, you know. But Daniel Boone was making his way through the Cumberland Gap in 1775. He was really that trailblazing frontiersman that was leading that expansion west, you know, surveying and doing all of these different things, kind of exploring that area for people to start their treks out west. Well, the Cumberland Gap later, well, all throughout time, it's been used for a gap, a pass in these really rugged mountains to transfer goods, transfer wealth, you know, all these different things. In the Civil War, it was an extremely important pass that was used by both and occupied by both the Confederate and Union, both of their armies. There are a lot of stories and accounts that some Civil War treasure have been placed and buried around the area.
I also think too, you meant to fact check me on this, but I'm almost positive that Daniel Boone's son or nephew is buried in St. Paul, Virginia. When he was making his trek across, that he got sick, maybe. For some reason, dysentery's in my brain, maybe because of the Oregon Trail, but I think I'm almost positive that it was either a son or a nephew that passed away and they buried him in St. Paul. I don't know why that is bubbling around the back of my head for, but I know that I've heard that somewhere before from a pretty reliable.
Yeah.
It's just kind of interesting because there's not much here. So that's saying St. Paul is, for those people who don't know the area well, is in Wise County, which is the county that borders Lee County. Which is where I'm at, which is borders Dixon County, which is the boys read this article's from. But I'm pretty sure his son and nephew, one is buried somewhere around the St. Paul area.
I didn't know that. I'll have to look into that for sure. But anyway, the Cumberland Gap, it's been it's been a well-used, well-traveled path from the beginning, pretty much. You know, anybody that is, you know, when people move, it's a lot like animals move through the woods. You find the path of least resistance, right? Whatever's going to be easiest. And the Cumberland Gap is just a natural, easy route in between a lot of really, really rough, rugged, mountainous terrain. So it's been used all throughout time. It's shifted hands to a lot of different people, a lot of different, like I said, the Civil War was used by the Confederacy and the Union. There's a lot of stories that I've came across here over the last couple of weeks of all these different treasure and silver. So I've came across so many stories in the last couple of weeks that there's no way I could even begin to share them all on here. So we're going to look more, we're not going to look as much at the treasure side of it today as the weird, paranormal, cryptid, that side of it today. Because after I got this article, I got really interested because I used to work with quite a few guys from Lee County. One of them I was pretty close to, and we used to swap stories back and forth all the time anyway. So I started messaging him and see what he had to say about the area. And it's interesting. So I'm going to share a little bit of that too. But anyway, I'll get into this article. I'll go ahead and read it, and then we can talk about it, what comes from that. So the article date, it's Thursday, January the 31st, 1974. It's titled Echoes from the Hills by Hampton Osborne. Out of the past, caves of Lee County. Most of Lee County is underlain by limestone and has numerous caves. In fact, Many of the hills are hollow from end to end. Caves all late Burdine Carter is a very interesting and comes out on the west side of the hill. Many years ago, people
Hey, Justin.
Hey.
Hey, Justin.
were afraid to pass this cave at night because of things unexplainable county and was returning home. It was dark enough that objects could not be identified. Just as he passed the east mouth of the cave,
Hey, Justin, can you hear me?
what's going on? Yeah.
You're freezing up, and then all of a sudden, it's like you're speaking like a chipmunk, like really fast.
I think you're good
You
now, brother.
serious?
I think you're good now.
I think you're good now.
I think it's leveled out now.
So where did it end off at? Like where did it start doing that at?
Hollow. Mountains are hollow.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me?
No.
Okay, so let's start that back over. Out of the past, caves of Lee County. Most of Lee County is underlain by limestone and has numerous caves. In fact, many of the hills are hollow from end to end. Caves always fascinated me, and I love to explore them. In East Blackwater, on the farm of the late Birding Carter, is a very interesting cave which goes through the hill and the creek which runs through it and comes out on the west side of the hill. Many years ago, people were afraid to pass this cave at night because of things unexplainable would come out of the cave and chase them. Once, grandfather, Solomon Osborne, had been up in Scott County and was returning home. It was dark enough that objects could not be identified. Just as he passed the east mouth of the cave, something came out and chased him and his horse. His horse ran like mad. Grandfather threw his arms around the neck of the horse and let him make his own way. He soon left the road and ran through open fields and woodland until he was about halfway home. He put his horse in his stable and went to bed. The next morning, when he went to feed his horse, he found several deep gashes in his back and hips. He believed it was a panther or some similar animal. No doubt it was a favorite place for large animals to shelter, especially during cold weather. The people said an old man who was mentally weak went into the cave once and was never seen again. They searched for him but could not find him. This cave is a two-story affair. You enter at the east end and go about a quarter of a mile, and there were stones which were like stairs, and you could easily walk to the upper hall and come out at the east end again. In the Flag Pond community in the same valley is a cave which looks like a hand-dug well. When you reach the bottom, it opens up wide and high with beautiful formations common to these caves. Near the Blackwater post office is a cave next in size to Cujo's cave at Cumberland Gap. This cave runs for miles under Newman Ridge, the home of the mysterious Melungeons. Two boys many years ago decided to go to the end of this cave. They walked west about 5 hours, and no sign of the end was in sight. They had only time lanterns, which would not hold out to give light over 10 hours. This is a very high-walled cave. Hold on, let me make this a little bit. Well, never mind, it's not going to. This is a very high-walled cave. From the mouth of the cave, about 1/4 of a mile, is a large, flat, smooth wall on one side. People call it a blackboard. On it is found names written before the Civil War. When I was a boy, there were still old picks, which were used by soldiers of the Confederate Army, digging out gunpowder. Digging out saltpeter to be used in making gunpowder. The high school pupils of Blackwater many years ago made an exploration of the cave as far as the old blackboard. A stone fell out of the wall and broke one of their lanterns, making it difficult to get it out. The most interesting cave in Lee County is Cujo's cave at Cumberland Gap. Several years ago, when we were taking a college course at Clintwood, the professor suggested that we go there and go through the cave, which we did. Judging from the entrance, I soon decided we were gypped, but the farther we went, the more pleased I was with the many interesting things found there. There was a pool of clear water, about 4 feet square, where visitors were invited to throw in coins for the Grace Net Thetan's Home for Children. Two fellows a year or so before we were there broke into the cave and robbed the pool. They were easily caught with their tarnished coins and sent away where there were no pools with orphans' money in it. Cleopatra Bath was a pool of water surrounded with drape-like curtains to give the famed lady proper privacy. A large stone which resembled the dome at Washington, D.C. Others resembled animals. At intervals, you could see the underground creek fed from an underground lake near Jonesville and flowing through this cave, which comes out on the southwest side of the ridge. This water is used to supply water for Cumberland Gap and Harrogate, Tennessee, and Lincoln Memorial University. This region was a very important gateway west, and so during the war, there were many hard-fought battles between the Confederate Army and the Federal Army. It changed hands several times during the war. I was told that once during the war, a black man named Cujo betrayed the Confederate Army and was found in the cave hiding and was killed by the soldiers. On top of this ridge, on both sides, are still to be seen trenches made by the Confederate and Federal armies. On the southwest side of the gap, on top of the mountain, in the spot where Tennessee, Virginia, and Kentucky all come together, one can stand in 3 states all at once. Ruins of a few old forts can still be seen as reminders of the war between the states. The town of Cumberland Gap is but a dim shadow of its former boom days when it was predicted to become a leading industrial center of the South. So there's the article. It's a rather long one. And we do want to give a shout out to its coal miner's daughter on Instagram that sent that article over. It was a great find, and we appreciate her sending that because I think it's definitely an area that we need to get our butts out to and do some caving.
Yeah.
So we'll
Spelunking.
There's that word again.
I think we said we're not allowed to use that anymore on the show.
Oh, that's right. Sorry.
Yeah.
We were using it to be the definition of a whole lot of different things.
Well, doesn't it sound like something that would happen in a porno? Like you'd be Googling porn, like spelunking.
No, it doesn't actually. Maybe.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of crazy stuff that has stories around the Cumberland Gap.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there's military stuff. There's supposedly underneath the tunnel there in the Cumberland Gap. There's and potentially there's rumors of a military base.
Mm-hmm.
There's always police presence around that area. When you travel through that tunnel.
One of the places that we've talked about on here before, what's it called? Anyway, the place that's in Duffield that I've talked about going by that, has got all the security fence around it, people patrolling the perimeter all the time and all that stuff. You can't get around at all. But years and years and years ago, you could get into the entrance and get into the place. And if you look it up, there's articles online that talk about it being the largest underground bunker in the U.S. So this is an area that's really, really close to the Cumberland Gap. So it may have been something that, didn't need a whole lot of man-made action going on, because according to this dude's account and this dude's article that he wrote in 1974, there's whole hillside, or there's whole hills and mountains here that have tunnels from end to end. So, I mean, maybe this is a whole network of tunnels. This account of these students going in there and, traveling for 5 hours and never making it to the end. You never making it to another side. I mean, that's a lot of tunnels. Like, that's a whole lot. So if we're talking like a dome or a bunker of some sorts or a place to, hide out whatever you wanted to hide out, sounds like a great place to do it. I mean,
And was it you that sent me the article that there was a Civil War general? I don't remember which side was riding his horse through one of these tunnels, and it was just kind of known locally, like don't go in the tunnel like by yourself or at night.
yeah,
And something
yeah,
swiped the horse and
yep,
put a pretty good gash mark down the behind legs as he was traversing through one night. That he heard something, and then he was trying to get out, and then the horse went nuts, and they finally got out of the tunnel. And then once they got to the other side, I was able to kind of slow down for a second. Something had taken a chunk or a swipe at the horse, right, and scratched it up really, really good. Did you send me that?
yeah. It was really similar to that. Yeah, I seen that article to you, and it's really similar to this account of his grandpa on here. The writer of this article. It's really similar to what his grandpa said. Now, obviously, his grandpa said, well, it was probably a panther, which also isn't supposed to be around here. So that would be a cryptid of some sorts anyway. But
There's
I don't know, man. Like,
there's panthers in these hills, boys.
yeah, for sure. Lance almost picked one up out of the road
Told that
and it would have killed him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like Tommy Boy.
I watched one a couple of times from the driveway when the kids would get on the bus.
Yeah. And maybe that is all it is. Maybe it's some mountain lions that are hanging out in these caves.
Not to derail stuff here, but why do you think the reasoning is that they won't just say there's panthers here?
I don't know.
What's the point of not releasing that? I mean, anybody who's lived here in any amount of time, everybody has a story about either hearing or seeing or catching a panther, or seeing a glimpse of one, or being in the woods and seeing one, or having on trail cams or whatever. Why do you think the authorities won't just say, yeah, they're here, they're here? What's the reason behind that?
I can't figure it out.
I really don't know either.
Plus, they're
I don't
protected. They're
Yeah.
not here, but they're protected.
True. I don't know. It's just kind of weird. I think
It is weird. It is weird. I don't understand. I'm like, I don't see any positive reasoning behind it to say, well, these things aren't here, knowing that they are. Just like we've talked about before, there's a dude that puts trail cams up on parts of High Knob once every few years. And man, he comes out with dozens of pictures of different mountain lions, of panthers, spotted, like almost leopard looking mountain lions, black panthers, like a bunch of different ones. It's not like they're different color schemes, different variations of color. So it's not just like the same cat showing up over and over and over. It's a bunch of them, dude. And he comes up every few years and does it and makes a big post about it. And so, I mean, that they're here. I saw a black panther. I was also extremely sick with the flu and had a high fever. So,
but not like,
I mean,
contrary to the people's Bigfoot sighting around here, there aren't paranormal things that go on when people see these panthers.
Yeah.
Which makes them even more like, not want to say more believable, but more like, I don't know, obviously physically here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you look back into Native American lore and stuff like that. They thought of, especially Black Panthers, they thought of them as spiritual beings, like as an elemental spirit, kind of. That's why you see so many places around this area, around Central Appalachia, like Panther Creek or Panther Creek State Park. You got a whole state park going up in West Virginia. The Panther, or what's it called? The Panther something rock, or the water Panther stone, something like that.
There's a city named Panther.
Yeah. So I mean, that that they're here. You know that they're around. Everybody's seen them. I mean, you almost got picked one up out of the road, and thank God you didn't, because it'd have tore your throat out.
That's true. I did almost pick one up.
So, I mean, I don't know. I really don't know, Lance. I have no idea why somebody would say that they're not here. And for me, I'm just going to be totally honest with you. I'm going to be 100% honest.
Please do.
I would rather encounter a squatch in the woods than I would a big freaking cat.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's a lot
because
of
number one,
things I would choose over a cat.
Yeah. Number one, Bigfoot, most encounters, he's trying to stay hidden. He's not trying to come up on you and say, boo, here I am. These big cats, 9 times out of 10, if you see them,
I'm trying to eat you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Or by the time you do see them, it's too late.
It's way too late.
Dude, I will never, ever, for as long as I live, I will never forget the fear and anxiety, that video that came out a couple years ago of that dude. Y'all remember this? When he backed out for like a mile on that road, and that cougar that's just, it kept coming. Dude, watching that video, I've never watched anything scarier in my entire life. There's no way. If I'd have been that dude, I'd just lay down and say, this is it. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm done.
Oh, man.
So back to the Lee County caves. Maybe that's all it is. Maybe that's all that it was, were these big cats coming out of there. But I think it's really cool, Ryan, the conversation that we had with Justin from Cryptids of the Corn just a few days ago. And when this drops and their episode drops, you guys will kind of see some of the intertwining details and conversation that come along with it. Because one of the things that we talked about with him were all of these stories and all of these accounts from coal miners and people that are going caving and people that are digging into the earth on their own property, or some of these abandoned mines, and talking and describing all of these different creatures that would come out of the ground. And not just, oh, well, I didn't see anything. My horse had some slashes on its hips and its back. No, people saying and literally writing, hey, we're seeing devils. There's devils coming out of the ground. People explaining and describing these horned creatures, or these little goblin looking creatures, or Tommy knockers, or these one-off beasts that have these gigantic wings and they fly up out of the ground and just take off. I mean, all kinds of these accounts, dude. There's hundreds of them when you start looking. And I'm not just talking about like creepypastas online. I'm talking newspaper articles, like all these accounts.
Yeah, I've got an account from a legitimate coal miner who tells the story, I mean, just like it's gospel. And you can kind of see like his skin kind of color fades when he tells a story, but he tells a story of being on break, lunch break in the coal mines in the 90s, I guess. And of course, everybody's sitting down, pulling the lunch pails out, and he took his work gloves off and just threw them out in front of him, so he could eat his sandwich and his little Debbie cakes and all the things that miners eat in their lunch pails. And there's no draft where he was at, no wind draft or air draft at all. And had his light on, was eating, and was kind of by himself. Other people were around, but he was kind of secluded or by himself a little bit. And one of the gloves that he had thrown out in front of him, moved a couple of inches. And thought it was weird at first, but kind of thought, well, maybe it just settled, or something. So he just continued to watch, and it continued to move around several different places within a foot diameter circle. And like was kind of starting to move kind of towards him a little bit. And he got backed up, and went scrambling out of there. And had some of his buddies come over to look. and they all shine their lights on it, and like it didn't move anymore. And they kind of Josh didn't tell him he was going crazy or whatever. And so they go back, and he sits back down to finish lunch. Freaking thing starts moving again. Not both of the gloves, just one of them. Moves around again, kind of in a circle, and jitters back and forth, and does a lot of crazy stuff that an inanimate object glove shouldn't do. And again, didn't feel any draft from there was of course, no air flowing through, or that would cause it. Of course, back that far, they're pumping the air, and how it works. But there's no reason for it to be able to move around. And he has a ton of stories just what he experienced when he was in the mines, spent 30 years in the mines. And that's just the kind of the tip of the iceberg on some of the crazy stuff that happened to him while he was there in the mines. So because we don't know, like it's hard telling really what, and you could, if it's demons, if it's ghosts, if it's spirits, if it's Nephilim, if it's Bigfoot, if it's what, I mean, it's really hard telling what exactly is in way back in these mountains. And I'm hoping to get him on it. I'm hoping to get him on the show. I think that if I can just get him kind of tied down to a time, we can get him on, and he can tell us, and he has some really interesting stories, some things he's seen and been a part of, just being here growing up and just being an Appalachia guy. It's always been in our area. But he's like, you can see his like demeanor change when he tells the story. It scared him to death.
Well, yeah, obviously. I mean, that would scare me to death. But you hear so many stories from these, and here's the thing. My dad's been a coal miner for 40 years. I've known a lot of my family are coal miners, and they're, yeah, you have different personality traits just like anywhere, but they're usually hard-nosed, no nonsense, just old backwoods kind of boys. You know what I mean? Like, they're not really gonna, especially when there's other people around, because there's not a whole lot of places in the mines where you're just solely by yourself, that you can just make up a bunch of junk. So when you have different witnesses and you have these dudes, they're like, oh yeah, like Tommy knockers, the whole thing with Tommy knockers, which was the wordage and the version of the very goblins that the Newkirks and the Hellier crew drove all the way down to Hellier to start checking out accounts of. Well, shoot, people have been talking about them for years and years and years in Appalachia when they started mining. And I think it's like you said, Lance, like who knows what these things are? But I think it's really interesting. Our local AI loving granny witch, her theory on how these old entities, these old gods were imprisoned here in Appalachia. And then you have all of these stories about all of these creatures seen underground or seen coming out from underground. I mean, I think there's some ties there. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be. We're never probably really ever going to fully know exactly, right? I mean, that's kind of the journey we're on, and trying to figure as much of stuff out as we can. But there's just too much eyewitness account. There's too much people corroborating stories. There's just too much evidence out there, just in our little area, that you can't just brush it off and say it's not true. You can't just be like, oh, yeah, it's just people acting crazy or talking crazy. You can't, because there's just too many people that have similar experiences, or just there's just too much stuff that can be told, that you can hear, stories that you hear, evidences of stuff. There's newspaper articles that are written. There's just video evidence. There's just so much stuff. It's hard not to. At least there's something going on. There's something trapped down there, or there's a earth spirit, or whatever it may be, that reveals itself, or we get too close and it does something to kind of like, all right, hey, let's quit working here, or let's quit mining here, or it's kind of wild to think about. But I think again, there's just too much information out there for us. to not say there's some truth to it. There has to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree 100%. Well, and even without all this, all the weird cryptid sightings and these, without the paranormal ties to it, if it's just like it's a geological oddity nonetheless. Like all these caves and all these caverns, it would be a blast just to go explore all this stuff and just to know the history behind all this, behind this area. And
it's hard telling
even without all the weird.
And it's hard telling what kind of hieroglyphics or paintings or stories are told in these caves too that nobody's seen because nobody's looked at them and nobody's went in and investigated. Nobody's taken the time to look at stuff.
Or if they have,
and it's been
they just don't care. It's been covered up or they don't care. Because we know for a fact that you can have some really, really, really cool, interesting carvings around and a whole bunch of people see them and just not care. We know that for a fact. I mean, we literally talk about it every single time we go on another podcast. Yeah. Even without all the weird stuff. That would be extremely interesting. Just the cave and the cavern side of it. But you throw in all the weird cryptid sightings. You throw in all the paranormal, that Cujo's cave that they keep talking about in here. There's a whole bunch of paranormal stories, a whole bunch of Civil War paranormal stories that go along with Cujo's cave. A couple different ghosts that are said to be seen and roam around and talk to. Sometimes people talk to these things thinking that they're real people. I'm going to share a little story here in a little bit from a personal contact that kind of goes along in that same area, those lines. But one of the stories, and like I said, guys, there are hundreds of stories that I've come across that go along with this area. But one of the most interesting ones that I've found in looking at, this whole Lee County, East Blackwell, Cumberland Gap, Cujo's Cave, this whole area. Here's one of the most interesting stories, and it's an old one. So in the 1790s, militiamen on patrol in the Cumberland Mountains stumbled across a creature that had, this is quotes, that had only 2 legs and stood almost upright, covered with scales of a black, brown, and light yellow color. In spots like rings, a white tuft or crown on the top of its head, about 4 feet high, and a head as big as a 2-pound stone, and large eyes of a fiery red. When one of the men attacked the thing with his sword, it jumped up at least 8 feet and then landed, spewing a red kind of matter out of its mouth resembling blood, as if it intended to fight. The tracks of it resembled that of a goose, but larger.
Yes.
Good Lord, sir. This goose has gone rabid.
So let's just describe that like scales, covered in scales. Yeah. Okay. In spot.
Somebody out there, hill folk out there that are much better being artists. Hang on a second, JK. The hill folk out there who are much better artists than we are. Yeah. Please take this description.
Do not forget the goose feet.
Don't forget the goose feet. And please see if you can give us an artist rendition of the description of this. Can we call it an animal?
Let's call it goose squatch.
It sounds like a reptilian to me. It sounds like a reptilian to me.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, so I'm going to go through that again. For the artist rendering out there, for the hill folk artist rendering, had only 2 legs, stood almost upright, so I'm guessing kind of crouching, covered with scales of a black, brown, and light yellow color, in spots like rings. A white tuft or crown on the top of its head, about 4 feet high. Not 4 inches, 4 feet, a white crown on its head. A head as big as a 2-pound stone, and large, fiery red eyes. And when this thing was attacked by a dude that was extremely freaked out with a sword, just started swinging.
Somebody stab it.
It jumped up at least 8 feet. Jumped up 8 feet, landed, and then spewed a red matter out of its mouth resembling blood, and then retreated into a laurel thicket, but kept turning back around like it was ready to fight as it was retreating.
And it had goose feet.
And it had goose feet. The tracks were that of a goose, but larger. Guys, I've never heard of anything that sounds like that ever in my life.
I mean, there are a variety of organisms out there that have a chemical that it can spew, kind of like when you think of a dragon spitting fire, right? There are several documented reptiles or organisms that have that ability to project chemicals, red, toxic chemicals, poisonous gas, what have you, as a defense mechanism. So, like, of all the things that are said about that creature, the goose squatch, that's the one that seems like, okay, well, that sounds totally crazy.
No, it could have just been like a reptile track, except maybe it had webbed feet or something.
But I don't even know where to start with that.
Yeah,
A 4-foot white crown on its head. So this was the king of the goose. This was the king goose squatch.
Yes, this was the king of the goose squatch.
Yeah.
And you think you're just gonna run up with your little bitch ass sword on the king of the goose squatch?
The king of the goose squat, dude.
Please.
Well,
And you know, too, it was the guy that would run
the
with
crazy
the sword was
thing,
like
and that
the new
article kind of
recruit.
goes
He
on.
was the new guy.
You know he was.
They were like, all right, go, James. Try to stab it.
Oh,
Stab
yeah,
that some
sure.
bitch.
I've never heard that. That's wild.
That is wild.
Yeah, you know. Well, and then it goes on. The article goes on to talk a little bit about how in Cherokee folklore they do mention like reptilian creatures or entities. None of them with that exact description, but you know, a lot of the Cherokee talks a whole lot about a great horned serpent, you know, that they actually worship. You know, had a crystal in the middle of its forehead. So this 4-foot crown or whatever, you know, maybe it was horns, maybe it's just a bunch of horns that was coming up out of its head. You know, these red eyes could have been this crystal in the middle of its forehead. It's a long shot.
Yeah.
But Cherokee lore, they talked a lot about the great horned serpent.
Maybe it's the world serpent and it's just a little form when it wants just to walk around.
Yeah. Probably not. Expect the world serpent to be a lot bigger. But no, I thought that was a really interesting account. And it's an old one, boy. That's what I love about. I love these old accounts, you know, before the internet, you're talking 1790. All right. You're talking the same time our boy JJ Swift is digging silver out of the mountain and sending it down the creek. These guys are sword fighting King Gooseadile. What are we gonna call it? Goosegator. King Goosegator.
Goose squatch.
Now I like Goose Gator because it sounds reptilian. Goose Gator Squatch.
Just quit trying to change everything. We've already moved past
All right.
this.
Whatever.
It's Goose Squatch. And how
Whatever.
dare you insult King Goose Squatch with your gator? Gator don't play that shit. You hear him?
Oh man,
Gator
I don't
gonna
know.
do.
It's nuts. So anyway, I was talking to a guy that I used to work with, lives down around these areas, and started talking about these caves and all this different stuff. Well, he said that when he was in high school, or maybe right out of high school, he was young dude, that him and a few of his buddies used to go hang out around Cujo's cave all the time. They would go in, check it out, just, young guys being young guys. A lot of times they were out, partying and drinking and doing all this different stuff. But sometimes they would go out exploring just for the sake of exploring. So he said that they were coming out of the caves one time and he was kind of hanging back because he was looking at the walls and looking at just, taking in the area, just taking it all in. Everybody else was getting out of there. So he said he's coming out through or toward the entrance. I'm really mush mouth tonight. I'm having a hard time talking.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Sorry.
Lock it up. Lock it up,
soldier.
You lock it up. Motorboating son of a you old sailor, you.
You made me clench.
That's like, okay. All right. So he's coming toward the entrance or the exit, at this point for him. And he hears a shuffling of feet behind him. So, automatically thinks, well, I'm not the last one in here. Somebody else, one of my other buddies must have been hanging back, or maybe he's even trying to scare me or whatever. So he hears shuffling. He turns around, doesn't see anybody, doesn't see a light. They all have headlamps on, all this stuff. Doesn't see a light, doesn't see anybody, nothing moving. So he keeps on walking. And I mean, he's going toward the exit, the entrance to this cave, but he's still a good distance away. He can see it, the light and everything, see how to get out, but he's still a decent distance away. So keeps hearing this. He starts walking again, hears it again, happens a couple times. Well, eventually he turns around, and when he turns around, there's a guy standing about 3 feet away from him. Just boom. Hasn't seen anything over and over and over. Well, he turns around, and all of a sudden there's this guy standing there. Well, he tells me that he thought that it was one of these Civil War actors, one of these reenactors of the Civil War things like they do. Because he said, it wasn't like a nice, crisp, fresh uniform like you see these dudes wearing with the brass polished and all this different stuff. He said it was pretty trashed out and haggard looking. He said, but he still thought that he didn't think a whole lot of it. And he asked the guy, or actually he jumps and he tells the dude, hey man, you startled me. And the guy actually says, I apologize. I'm just trying to find the rest of my people. And he was like, well, man, I haven't seen anybody else in here. It's just been me and my buddies back in here. We were just getting ready to leave for the day. I mean, do you want us to come back in and help you? And he said, no, I'll be okay. So the guy says, well, or my buddy says, okay, well, yeah, have a good day.
See you later.
And turns around. Now here's the kicker. Turns around, takes a few steps, turns back around, and there's nobody there. Now, that's a wild story. And could he totally be making it up just for, yeah, absolutely. I guess he probably could. But I've known this guy a long time, and we used to swap stories a whole lot of times. And he would usually carry receipts to back up his stories, whether it be other witnesses or, kind of corroborating evidence. And this one, well, there was other people around that'll say, I don't know what happened in there, but he come out booking it as fast as he could. And he looked like he just seen a ghost. And according to him,
he had.
He had.
That's crazy.
I mean,
That
we know
is
historically,
nuts.
they were there. We know historically battles happened there. We know that it changed hands a bunch of times. I mean, who knows? I don't know. It's so we've got King Goose Squatch, we've got Civil War ghosts, possible Civil War treasure around the area. There's a guy based out of Richmond, Rick. I never can remember his last name, but he has an investigation base in Lee County that he sets up and goes out there in the field and investigates, cryptids, paranormal, all that stuff. I think once or twice a year. And he literally calls the area the Tri-Zone, which I love. I wish I would have thought of that before he did. The area of Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, that little corner where the Cumberland Gap is, that's where he sets up, and that's where he calls the Tri-Zone. And let's also not forget one of the only actual mounds found in southwestern Virginia is in Lee County, not far from this same area that we're talking about.
Right.
I did not know
It's a weird
that.
area. Yeah. Well, we talked about it before, but I know sometimes you forget a whole lot of what we talk about.
It's almost
you have no idea.
Blank slate every day.
You have no idea. There's a lot of times at work that Ryan will bring something up like he's stoked about it. And I'll be like, yeah, we talked about that already. Or he'll ask a question about something, or be listening to somebody on a different show and be like, man, have you heard this dude talk about this? He's saying this and this and that. I'll be like, yeah, bro, we had him on the show, and that's exactly what he talked about with us too.
Listen, Ryan, just a clean slate every day. Good way to live your life.
It is. It's no burdens.
It's like the co-host is a casual listener.
Oh man.
But I love it. He gets just as excited about all this stuff as, like it's all fresh. It's all new.
Hey, it is to me, apparently.
So this area, it's weird. It's awesome geologically. I think we need to get out there and do some exploring and checking out because it sounds like a lot of fun. But when you have accounts that go back to, at least 1790, I mean, you just got according to what history says, just 15 years earlier is when Daniel Boone is knocking a path out through there. So Daniel Boone's knocking out a path. 15 years later, they're seeing King Goose Squatch that's ready to fight and spit radioactive blood on him after he jumps up 8 feet in the air. And I can't get over that story.
That's how he initiates his power. He jumps in the air. It's
crazy.
It's calling card. That's how he initiates his power. It's like the world's the most dangerous Pokemon.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Oh my God.
King Goose Squatch, I choose you.
What is it? Ashton always says, I don't think it's Pokemon. They went super something.
Super Saiyan.
Yes.
It's Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
They
went Super Saiyan.
I need to be watching Digimon anyways. It was the best one. Digimon, digital monsters. Yeah, we got there. You mean tell my story, Justin?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Or do you have more?
No. I mean, I have more. I have a ton. I have enough for a 5-hour episode, but we're not going to do all that.
No, that's not.
And I also could get into the ties with our good medium friend. We'll say that. I don't know exactly what to call her. but how she made initial contact too that had to do with this place and what I was looking at. We could probably say that for another time too. Yeah, let's just go ahead and get into what you got to talk
Are you
about.
sure?
Go
I
ahead.
mean, I don't have to. I can save it for another day.
No,
You've
sir.
been teasing us for a while.
This is a pretty good one. I'm not gonna lie. I usually don't. When I come across stories, I usually don't. This is a pretty good one.
Let's get into it.
Shout out to Steve Gilly and the Appalachian Story Show. I think it's what it's called. Steve Gilly's a local guy that writes stories about Appalachia. Has a show on YouTube. That's where I got this from. Where I got most of it from. Again, I can't think. I should have written it down. I did not. Maybe I've got it on here. Maybe it'll show up. So a little bit of history, a little bit of folklore, a good story for you. At one time, the mountains of this area were awash with long hunters collecting hides for sale and shipment back to England. It's a lucrative trade at the time, and these men were the first wave of the later English settlement in Appalachia. And this story deals with those people. And this man named was Joash. He was a hunter who'd come out of North Carolina, wandering up over the peaks and valleys of Appalachia looking for game when he found a good spot. So Joash would set up camp and stay in the area until he gathered up enough fur and hides to make the trip back to the settlements in North Carolina, make it worthwhile. One of these trips, he took his son along, planning to teach the young man the skills of mountain hunting and mountain living. The two of them found a suitable site near a big spring, and they built a cabin there. Plenty of game. The hunting was great, and that was one of the best seasons that they'd ever had. No other people were in the region at that time, and the two of them had all the hunting and trapping to themselves, so they had no need to lock their cabin door. They simply just pulled the door shut and left the cabin and their supplies and furs alone for days on end as they followed the game trails through the mountains. When they got back, the cabin would always be undisturbed. Until one day in the fall, they returned to the cabin to find that its contents had been ripped apart and scattered about. Their food stores had been broken into, the dried meat pulled down from where it had been hanging, and some of the furs had been taken and ripped apart as well. So Joash was puzzled and wondered what in the world could have done this. And the only explanation the two of them could come up with, that it must have been someone, well, maybe not someone, but something, like a big black bear. Of course, that worried the two men, and they were concerned that it might come back. So they decided the best course of action for them was to take turns going out into the woods to hunt, while the other one stayed back behind the cabin to protect it at all times. One day, after the hunt, the son came home to find his father agitated. And Joash told him that he'd heard something horrible outside in the woods, a creature that made a weird wailing cry all the way around the cabin, and it was an eerie sound. Sounded part human, but also part beast. Well, Joash had never heard such a strange sound before, not in all his years as a hunter in these mountains going all the way up from North Carolina to the Ohio River. No matter what he did, he never did spot whatever it was that was making all this unearthly noise in the woods. And obviously it spooked the two, father and son, pretty badly, to the point that they were fearful of going out in the wilderness around the cabin at all. So as a result, they both stayed close to home, refusing to leave the safety of the cabin in its immediate vicinity. This went on for about a week, and during that time, those strange sounds failed to return. So the two thought about it and decided that whatever was making it, that sound, that it was out in the woods. So that day was gone, and the two returned, taking turns hunting and guarding the cabin. Well, they kept this up all through the fall, on into the winter. They hunted, trapped animals for meat, for furs, and hides until they made well enough to make their trip back to North Carolina. And they'd made it all worth it in the spring as they'd finished, they packing their catch of furs for the trip back home. The son decided that before they left, that he would go back out into the woods to shoot some squirrels for breakfast down at a stand of hickory trees that was always full of animals. So the son went on down there, leaving Joash to finish packing for their long trip. And after catching 6 squirrels, the son headed back to the cabin. And just as he got there with his catch, he got to the side, within sight of the cabin, he caught sight of a strange, hairy, naked man running off into the woods, carrying something that looked familiar. He looked closer and noticed that the thing that he was carrying was his father. The young man fell to his knees, grabbing his rifle, and took careful aim at the figure and fired. The shot met its mark, and the hairy man fell instantly dead. As the young man ran towards the creature, he almost tripped over something. He looked down to see what he tripped over, and in his horror, he saw his father's bloody leg ripped out of the socket at the hip. Whatever had done that was more powerful than any bear or any other creature that lived in these mountains. Farther along, he found the twisted remains of Joash's body, and then he found the dead beast. The young man buried his father near the cabin, and after that he dragged the body of the hairy man to a nearby ditch and covered it up with dirt and rocks. And when he got a closer look at the beast, he found it to be taller than any man he'd ever seen, probably 7 or 8 feet tall. He was in very good shape, very muscular, with a thick chest, very large feet, too large for any moccasin to fit. This thing, whatever it was, wasn't quite human, wasn't quite animal, and certainly not a Native American or any other human being for that matter. So shocked as he was at the tragic events, with a heavy heart, the loss of his father, the young man thought it would be best to wait another day before he started out for home with the first light. So the next day, all that had happened, that day was nothing compared to what waited him in the darkness that fell the night when he tried to get some sleep. But he wasn't able to, just because of the loss of his father. Not just because of the loss of his father, but because the strange wailing sounds had returned. All night, he was kept awake by those unearthly shrieks that pierced the air and kept him up for hours on hours on hours, probably all night long. And when he went out at first light, he found that the hairy man had been removed from his grave in the ditch sometime in the night and carried away. This terrified the young man so quickly that he packed up the rest of his belongings and headed out of the horrible place and hightailed it back to the settlements in North Carolina, vowing never to return to that cursed place above the most beautiful valley that would be later named for a member of Dr. Thomas Walker's expedition to the Cumberland Gap, Powell Valley. And in that place that the cabin set well was named for the slain father of Joash Cracker, now known as Cracker's Neck. And the hairy man, probably heard of him by another name. There's a statue of him on High Knob in Norton, the Woodbooger. That's the first tale of the encounter between man and Woodbooger in the mountains above Powell Valley. Another bit of piece of history of this place that we call home.
Dude,
that was freaking awesome.
So Cracker's Neck is an actual place in Big Stone Gap. It's like it's a place where people live. Like there's an area of Big Stone Gap called Cracker's Neck. It's still called that to this day. It's on the map as Cracker's Neck, and it all started because of that story.
That is awesome.
It's a good one, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I read it, I don't know, probably 15 times. And I still get chills every time I read it.
Well, dude, like I was kicked back, just taking it all in. Everything was cool. And then you hit me with this thing was carrying his dad's body. And I was like back up in. You're like, wait, what? Like I was up and down. Like the story was so good that my emotions were all over the place.
Yeah, shout out Steve Gilly, Appalachian Folklore Stories. I think I'll look it up for sure. But he does a really good job with that YouTube show. Has good stories about the area.
Heck
does
yeah,
does a lot of really good research.
Look him up, find out where he is, and we'll start pushing him like crazy. We'll get up with him and try to collab.
Yeah.
If he's hitting people with stories like that, we need him here. No, dude, that's awesome. Like that's a great story, and it shows like, well, not only the origin of the name Woodbooger, which is awesome, it, is a tie into the same area. Because like you said earlier, I mean, where we're talking about with Lee County, where we're talking about here in Wise County, they're bordering counties. They're side by side. I mean, and like we've talked about all the time, these creatures, I don't think they care a whole lot about borders, whether it be county borders or state borders or whatever. They're circumnavigating a certain area regardless of what's going on. But man, I don't even know what to say about that. Story is awesome. The origin of the Woodbooger, the first account of, this person's not even calling it like a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch or he's making up his own name for it because he don't know what it is. It's a big, giant, hairy dude that's really, really good shape and super strong, way stronger than anything else that he knows of. But it also shows that familial tie within these big feats. I mean, the body was recovered.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have you heard stories like that where one's been injured or whatever, been hurt, and then a bunch of more have showed up to help or to recover the body or whatever the case may be.
Well, that's still my theory as to why we've never found any bones, a skeleton, anything like that of a Bigfoot. Because I think that whatever's done with them, I think that they're intelligent enough beings that they respectfully dispose of their dead. And dude, I don't know. It even goes to like some of these things, like some of these giant bones that are found in mounds and stuff. Like, were these giants or were they these big feats? Was this an actual race of people? Did this race of people, these big feats, did they come from these Nephilim giants? I don't know, man. Like, there's so much, but if they bury their dead and we're finding giant bones, now the ones that are found with like actual weaponry, crests on their shields and all this different stuff, yeah, probably giants. But I don't know. It just brings into question so much. I mean, within this story, it's a tragic story. You get the origin of the name Woodbooger. The area that it's talking about is literally next door to us, really next door to you, Lance.
Yeah.
And it still brings up so many questions. It shows the intelligence of these things. I don't know. That's a great account. That's great. Holy crap.
And the Cumberland Gap, a great place for those things to hang out.
Yeah.
All those caves and holes in the mountains. Can get up in the mountains they need to hide.
Yeah. Well, just in talking about the Cumberland Gap just today, just covering some of the little bit that we've shared on here. We've talked deep underground military bases. We've talked the biggest bunker in the U.S. We've talked ghosts and the paranormal. We've talked mountain lions, Black Panthers. We've talked whatever this creature was, this King Goosewatch creature.
How you can't run up on him with no bitch ass sword.
King Goosewatch has got to go on a t-shirt.
Oh, yes.
Come up with that artist rendering, guys.
Guys, we really need an artist out there I got a few actual artists in the pocket that I may have to pay out a little bit of money to get a really great rendering of King Goosewatch.
Well, let's just see what our guys can do first.
Well, yeah, we will. Yeah, for sure. But I'm just saying, if it doesn't pan out with you hill folk, I've got a couple on standby. No, but we've talked about the entire spectrum. Well, I guess the only thing that we haven't hit on is aliens and UFOs. But I'm sure there's a lot of accounts of those in the area too.
I can only imagine.
And again, what does it all lead back to? Subterranean, underground. Everything's leading back to these caves. I don't know, dude. It's
down south to the Cumberland Gap. Johnson Teddy. Can I say? You're welcome.
yeah. Good job there, Travis. No, man, that was good. That was really good. I love that story. We've also had a listener reach out from Harlan County talking about some areas on Pine Mountain where she lives and occupies, that there's a whole lot of caves, a whole lot of quartz deposits, a whole lot of weird stuff going on there, that she's actually going to pin it and send us some GPS coordinates to some of these more interesting places. But getting into these songs, one thing, boys, we go into Harlan. You'll never leave Harlan alive.
Never leave Harlan
alive. Never leave Harlan alive.
In the deep, dark hills of eastern Kentucky is a place where I trace my bloodline. All right, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
We'll leave it at that. Guys.
Was this a good one?
That's a good one. That was a good one. That was a good one.
All right, got some new kinfolk.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say, before we jump out of here, Ryan, hit them with the new patron, the new kinfolk.
All right, well, I'm going to hit them with all of them.
Hit them with them, but I don't
You know who you are.
Hit them.
We have Katie Lakomsky, Maynard W., Keith Bryant, Mark C., Kenneth Bailey, Mr. Beard, The Amazing Rando, Troy, Fido, Outlaw 441, Dick Meadows, Still in Business, Grows the Finest, Devin, Brett Elder, Tebecca, I'm not sure, E. Marshall Smith, Rachel Nightingale, and Carrie Quite Contrary. Thank you to the kinfolk. Welcome to the new kinfolk. A shout out to our Discord again. Love those guys over there. So much fun.
That thing is always popping off.
Yeah, so much fun, man.
And mostly about drinking.
We can't help. We like to have a good time. So,
and surprisingly, every time that Outlaw says it's whatever day of the week and then ties it to an alcoholic beverage, we have it on hand at work.
Yeah,
where there's a whole lot of blades. It's probably a terrible, terrible idea.
Nah, nothing could go wrong with this. I cut my thumb sober that one day.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But no, we do appreciate all you kinfolk. We really, really do. Again, we'll say it every single time. We have no idea why anybody would pay any money to listen to what we have to say or the extra stuff. And we're planning on putting some more stuff out to come on there. Ryan and his son have a really awesome cryptid episode that's getting ready to go on. I've been editing a little bit on it to get it up.
Yeah. Warning, the audio is shit, but it was a lot of fun. And my son, he's a crackerjack.
But yeah, we've got a lot of cool stuff coming down the pike. Again, we apologize. We've been extremely, extremely busy. We're trying to stay up to par and to give you guys what you expect from us. But life hits, and it hits hard sometimes. And that's why we have 3 hosts. So, if one of us or even 2 of us can't be there, the show still goes on. But yeah, go check us out on all these other places too. And where you do find us on these other shows, go give them a whole bunch of love too. Give them the downloads, give them the 5-star ratings and reviews, be a part of their communities as well, because, we're joining in their communities. Again, we say all the time, we're trying to build the tribe. So go follow all these people too. We've got an episode coming out with Justin and Jay over at Cryptids of the Corn. Pretty soon. We've got an episode coming out with Shane over at Inquiries of Our Reality pretty soon. We had the absolute privilege of speaking with Sam Tripoli the other night on his paid platform show, Only Conspiracies. You can check it out over there on Rockfin. We've been, the Strange Roads guys. We've been on their show. We've been on Mark's show. My Family Thinks I'm Crazy. Tony's show, The Confessionals. Hollow Sky Boys, Steve and Kyle. We've been over there with them. We are going on Eric's show over at Uncomfortable here in a little while. Our coon hunting boys, down in South Carolina, Coon Hunt Confidentials. We got a swap cast coming up with them pretty soon. We've been on a lot of different shows. We're spreading the Hill Folk name, the Hill Folk Nation out there on a lot of different ears. But it's just because, it's because we've stumbled on an awesome adventure and journey in our own right. But that wouldn't mean anything if what we were saying about it was falling on deaf ears, or if it wasn't being shared. So all you Hill folk out there that are sharing the show, keep doing that, because the show's been steady growing every week. So for that, we are greatly appreciative. Boys, anything y'all want to share before I hit them with the outro info?
Nope.
No, nothing I can think of.
Okay, well, we hope you guys enjoyed this one. We did. This is a really interesting topic and conversation, and I think this could be a 2-parter or a 3-parter or a 4-parter. This is definitely enough ammo out there that we could come back to at some point. But Hill folk, be sure to leave those 5-star ratings and reviews. They help out tremendously, and we greatly appreciate those. Be sure to follow us on all of our socials. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Be sure to come hang out with us over in the Discord. We have a really good time over there. If you feel led to throw a little change our way, we have a support the show link I always forget about, that you can click on that and donate just a few dollars here and there to go toward the show. If you feel led to subscribe to a monthly, more consistent financial status, you can check us out over on Patreon at patreon.com/Appalachian_intelligence. You can subscribe to our YouTube at Appalachian Intelligence. We're going to start putting some more stuff back on there. They hurt our feelings for a little bit, but I think we're going to try to give them a second chance, I guess.
It's your last chance, YouTube.
Yeah.
It's your last chance.
Yeah.
Understand us.
Understand that you have violated Hill Folk community guidelines.
Yeah.
Not the other way around. Not the other way around. We got our eye on you, YouTube. We got our eye on you. One more. You send me one more warning.
Yeah.
And it's over.
Taking down our videos.
The Hill Folk community guidelines are way stronger than your YouTube community guidelines. We will storm the castle.
We'll find the castle and then we'll storm it.
Yeah. I hope you flag me for that one, you bunch of jerks. I was getting ready to say something else there, but
you just got us
back. I'm glad you held yourself back.
You
held yourself PG'd back. It up there, you bunch of YouTube dorks. Anyway, that made me totally lose my place.
You're at the end.
I think we were about to say
YouTube. If you do it, if you violate Hill Folk community guidelines again, I'm blasting it. I'm blasting out there on social media all over the place. I'm turning the whole Hill Folk community against you. There'll never ever be be another stream on YouTube from the Hill Folk again, ever.
We can't make that guarantee, but we
No,
can
I
make
can.
the threat.
No, I'm guaranteeing it.
I'm still
I'm
gonna
writing.
watch YouTube.
I'm signing a check right now. You better not. You better not.
You bet not.
Be sure to share the show. Share the show.
Please share the
Any
show.
way that you're comfortable sharing it. Again, all the areas that we're lacking, we apologize. We will make good on all these things. We'll get the stickers sent out. All the things we'll do. Yeah, I think that's about it. Boys, love y'all.
Love you, mean it.
Hill Folk, we love you. We really, really do.
We really do.
And until next time, we'll see y'all later.